International 101, number one. Tired of the ordinary at lunchtime? Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Thursday, the 13th of March, 2025, and it is program number 1337 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are also up and running on our Facebook Live feed. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us at our WhatsApp number. You can call in to 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. And of course, you can also do that by messaging in to that number as well. Now, we're going to send out some birthday greetings today to Mr. Marias James. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we do hope that you're having a spectacular birthday celebration. And also to Mr. Roderick Cherry, happy birthday to you. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. Looking back in time, a bit of history. Well, in the year 624, the Battle of Badir saw Muhammad's Muslim forces win a significant victory over the Meccan army. 1781 on this day, so William Herschel, seeing what he thought it was a comet, but that actually was the discovery of the planet Uranus. And in the year 1877, American Chester Greenwood patented earmuffs after inventing them at the age of 15. 1884 on this day, so the siege of Khartoum in Sudan, beginning by Mahdist forces, and that lasted 10 months. 1903, so the fall of the Sokoto Caliphate in northern Nigeria, with the British claiming supremacy over 500,000 square miles of that caliphate. In the year 1930, on this day, Clyde Tombaugh announced the discovery of Pluto at the Lowell Observatory. That's in Massachusetts. In 2003, the journal Nature reported that 350,000-year-old footprints of an upright walking human were found in Italy. And in 2019, on this day, the United States grounded all Boeing 737 MAX aircraft after bans by other countries following the plane's second crash in Ethiopia. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought in the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Brazilians, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And we do hope that everybody is having a good one. And of course, we've been looking at a number of different matters around the world. And the issue of movement of people has always been a very ticklish one for people in the developing world. Quite often, persons from the developing world do not have as much access to other countries simply because they require visas and there are other restrictions that are placed on individuals from particular countries. And of course, this is partly why we've seen a great interest in the matter of what are termed sometimes golden passports, and individuals from countries where passports are not seen to be that strong. And that means that they don't have as much access to other countries. They require quite a lot of visas to go through these countries. They tend to want to actually look for the ability to gain citizenship in another country, and so they would look for the ability to gain a passport in other countries. And of course, that is of course a major reason why we have CIP, Citizenship by Investment programs, in place in the case of St. Lucia, Dominica, and many others. Of course, there are even websites that you can go to that you can look at what is known as the Passport Index that ranks passports from different parts of the world. And interesting enough, in the case of St. Lucia, I think we are ranked at number 24 in the list, along with Panama. We're tied at that level, number 24. Or so we're just ahead of Grenada at 25, but behind Mauritius at 23. The highest in that list from the Caribbean has been Barbados, with what is considered the 13th most powerful passport in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not only 12 other countries above it. In fact, the list has a number of countries tied. The most powerful passport in the world is considered one from the United Arab Emirates, believe it or not, the UAE. And that just goes to show how wealth is driving these considerations here. Very, very wealthy country, of course. And it finds itself meaning that you can go into 133 countries visa-free, and another 46 with a visa upon requirement. So other countries very much up there, of course. Spain a second on the list. And then ranking third is a number of countries like Singapore, France, Germany, a number of countries in Europe, Norway, Greece, a long list of them. And then others like Sweden and Hungary, Poland. We don't want to go through the entire list, of course. But interesting enough, Trinidad and Tobago was listed as number 20, I believe, in the world, with the ability to go into 144 countries with either no visa or visa upon arrival, which was a little bit better than us, where we have 140 countries in the case of St. Lucia. But there's been one significant change in the case of Trinidad, and that is with respect to travel to the United Kingdom. And just yesterday, news coming that Trinidad and Tobago visitors or tourists will now require a visa upon entry. And just to share that story, coming out of the UK Express, it reads as follows. The UK has banned tourists from Trinidad and Tobago from entering the country without a visa as part of a government crackdown on asylum applications. The Home Office will announce the changes later today following a major increase in applications from the Caribbean islands. Last year, there were a staggering 439 claims. This follows 348 in 2023, a hike of 173 in 2022, and an average of 49 between the years 2015 and 2019. Citizens from certain countries, such as Trinidad and Tobago, can apply for electronic travel authorization, allowing them to stay in the UK for 6 months without a visa. The government is now seeking to crack down on the loophole by removing the ETA status from the country, a government source told The Times. Quote, there has been a significant increase in the number of Trinidad and Tobago nationals coming to the UK as visitors only to claim asylum on arrival, which constitutes a misuse of our immigration system, the inside source said. The UK's relationship with Trinidad and Tobago remains a strong one, and we will continue to warmly welcome visitors who will now need to apply for a visitor visa. The decision will be kept under review. This follows the Conservatives tabling a series of amendments to Labour's Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill on Monday. They are calling for tougher measures to end mass, low-skilled, low-wage immigration into the UK. The Tories have proposed that migrants should not be able to bring their partners to the UK for at least 2 years. Foreign workers will also have to earn at least £38,700, and the party proposes revoking an asylum claim if someone returns to their country of origin, even for a holiday. Other suggested changes included that anyone who has been granted a work visa will be unable to apply for any form of government benefit, including housing support. More than 4,000 people arrived in the UK so far this year, according to Home Office figures. Some 237 people journeyed in 4 boats on Sunday, taking the provisional total this year to 4,131. So, of course, the matter of asylum seeking is seemingly causing the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago a mass to be slapped with what is a new requirement for getting visas to enter the country. And of course, it is, again, a situation of Peter paying for Paul. We've seen this in many instances in the past, even right here in St. Lucia and the OECS. We had, in fact, fallen victim to a similar situation with that of access to Canada. And there were a number of individuals coming from the OECS states who were, in fact, heading to Canada. At the time, we did not require any visa of the sort. And they were, in fact, seeking asylum. And although the numbers perhaps would be considered relatively small in the greater scheme of things, many times these immigration departments are looking at the per capita rates, how many people do you have in your country and how many are seeking asylum, and that if that number seems to go over whatever threshold, then chances are you will be slapped with some form of a visa restriction. And this is exactly what has happened in the case of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's quite possible that, of course, that ranking regarding the passport strength may very well have to be revised downwards for Trinidad and Tobago. Now, onto the matter of the stock market, and we've been speaking about the Sovereign Wealth Fund. The government of St. Lucia bringing legislation forward in the parliament this week to approve the establishment of a Sovereign Wealth Fund. I'm not sure that it was stated very explicitly how, well, I think maybe I missed that, but how that may necessarily be funded, but one can assume that the idea is that the proceeds of the some of the proceeds coming out of the Citizenship by Investment program should be taken aside and invested into companies and into the corporate markets, capital markets, to be able to see how they can in fact accrue greater returns for the country on a whole. It has quite often been recommended by players like the IMF, for example, that countries like ours, albeit very small, because we are so vulnerable to these quote unquote exogenous shocks, things that we have very little control over because we depend so heavily on trade with the outside world. We're very highly dependent on imports as well. Our even our economy is not driven by local consumption, but it really requires for us to be able to export, in the case of whether it's BPO services, whether it's tourism, financial services. We're very much dependent on the outside world, and we are also dealing with major existential threats like climate change and the issue of increased risk of natural disasters. And so the idea is that you've got to have a rainy day fund, and a fund that goes beyond just having a contingency line in your estimates of expenditure. The idea is that you should have a pot of resources which, in very bad situations, the country can in fact reach into to be able to deal with the kind of shocks that may or may not come. We've seen, of course, a significant shock, that of a pandemic, thanks to COVID-19. And these things, for all we know, may very well come up every so often. And so there has to be some level of safeguard against that. And so this is the thinking that the government should in fact have such a fund in place to be able to deal with, at least in one instance, with that matter. And of course, to ensure that the country is leaving something for the future generation so that they can in fact inherit something as well, in as a whole, as a country, passing on to the next generation. So that's the thinking generally behind sovereign wealth funds, and the need for these funds to be able to go out and invest in these markets wherever they may be. Yesterday, we were speaking about the scale of these investment platforms. The United States of America, of course, stands out tremendously. I think nearly half of all the world's market capitalization is actually held in the United States of America. I think it represents somewhere in the region of about 62.2 trillion US dollars. And that pale, that far outweighs any other country out there. The next largest capital market would in fact be China, and their capitalization is somewhere around $12 trillion, and that would be followed by Japan with about 6.2 trillion, India 5.6, Hong Kong, interestingly enough, coming up pretty high as the fifth largest in the world. Of course, giving you a sense as to how important the Hong Kong is in terms of financial trade and investments. $5.3 trillion held within companies listed on that stock exchange. And of course, the list goes on, the likes of France and the UK, and so on. Of course, we have a very, very small trading platform here, if you like, that of the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. And of course, there's not much of a, I think the largest in the region would be that of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of market capitalization. I think they have about $17.7 billion in their stock exchange. So it is very, of course, important to be able to participate in that investment, in those investment fora. However, of course, as we have seen over the past couple of days, it can be very, very fickle. And as we were saying earlier in the week, markets like stability. They like to know what's happening. They like to be able to have, they want predictability. They want to be able to see a path for which wealth can be accumulated. And every now and then, we end up in situations where there are potential bubbles. And then, unfortunately, these bubbles are effectively where you have certain stocks or certain companies, certain sectors being inflated in value. And so every now and then, you may very well have that bubble bursting. And we've seen that happen in the past, in around 2007, 2008, with that global financial crisis. And we saw the number of companies and banks closing down and the impact that it had on the world's economy then. There are other corrections that occur over time. And maybe we may very well be seeing one right now. Who knows? There was a great hope that there would have been, for a lot of these very, very wealthy individuals, that they would have seen an increase in their wealth. Now, perhaps it stood to reason, and they associated the Republican Party as a party that tends to promote the idea of small government, low taxes, and lots more money for especially the very wealthy to be able to, in principle, the thinking being to innovate and reinvest those monies so that somehow it trickles down to the benefit of the ordinary citizen by way of job creation and benefits to themselves in other ways, right? That's the thinking there. But of course, that type of economics doesn't always quite work out. And many of these individuals have put their trust in Mr. Donald Trump and his presidency, and very clearly wanted to associate themselves with him, as was very evident and very visible when he was sworn in during that ceremony at the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. back in January. And he was sworn in, and surrounding him were some of the richest men in the United States of America, and certainly some of the richest men in the world, the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, the owner of Meta, formerly Facebook, but of course owns quite a lot more than that. The other giants around there, Jeff Bezos, for example, was present, and we know his success story in terms of things like Amazon, and of course, very prominently, and we've been seeing quite a lot of him, Elon Musk, another one of the world's richest men. That was what we were getting at that time. These individuals being very much front and center in that period of time. And of course, that period between Trump's re-election and when he was sworn in was a great time for these individuals, for America's richest people. In fact, the S&P 500, one of those indices, hit an all-time high with the expectation that the Trump presidency would be very friendly towards their business. But the big question, of course, that is being asked by many, including these individuals, no doubt, is that it seems like the support for these companies, such as Meta and Amazon and Tesla, may have cost them far more than they were expecting. And according to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Musk have together lost over 200 billion US dollars since Trump returned to the White House. Jeff Bezos, according to Bloomberg, has lost $29 billion since January the 20th, followed by Google's Sergey Brin, who lost about $22 billion. Things have been slightly better for Mark Zuckerberg, as well as Bernard Arnault of France. He has made his wealth in all the fashion products, LV, with losses of only $2 billion US dollars each. Bloomberg is also reporting that Elon Musk alone, of course, who we have seen quite a lot of because of his association in the Donald Trump administration, the head of Doge, what was formerly an entity to deal with digitization, now called the Department of Government Efficiency. He, in fact, has lost a net worth of over 140 billion US dollars since the beginning of the year. Not only that, but his electric vehicle company, Tesla, has lost over 20% of its value, with sales dropping by 45% in the case of Europe. And it's not only Europe, it's, of course, has a clear impact in China. They've perhaps lost that war in terms of the EV market. And as well, of course, even in the United States of America, right now, we're seeing a very similar sort of situation. Forbes is, in fact, reporting that on March the 10th, the South African-born tech billionaire lost 22 billion US dollars in a single day. And just to compare, that is roughly the GDP, the entire economy in a year of the country Armenia. So it is a remarkably astounding amount of loss of wealth. Nonetheless, with Bloomberg estimating a net worth north of 300 billion US dollars, Elon Musk remains the wealthiest man in the world, and one who seemingly has full access to the leader of the quote-unquote free world. That's our dish of the day. And we're going to head across to take in our weather report at this time. When we come back, we'll also open up the lines to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tells for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tells for your balcony. Come down to Tells Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tells Plus, Tells Plus, Tells Plus. Big tells with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. This all kind of tells. Come down to Tells Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tells on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grizzly Lakes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
King sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
Of course, on the 1.1 is on time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Back. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from between the east, northeast, and east near 50 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. The weather generally fair and warm this afternoon. Tonight, fair to partly cloudy skies with a few brief showers. The forecast for the Los Antilles, fair skies occasionally becoming cloudy for a few showers. And the weather summary, a light to moderate easterly wind flow will persist over the eastern Caribbean region during the next 24 hours. Shallow patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause a few brief showers over parts of the region during the forecast period. And this was the weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Star Talent Back.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style. Yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We are tiles and king sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And we also have the option of calling in via WhatsApp, 724-0008. Now, of course, ever since perhaps the past 2 weeks now, and I think with the United Workers' Party coming out and launching 5 of its candidates all at once at a meeting held down in Dennery South, there has seemingly been an uptick in political interest at this point in time. And in fact, just over the weekend again, we saw a very large meeting of the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party happening down at Ancillary, and also another meeting of the opposition United Workers' Party occurring in the community of Dairyso in the constituency of Miku South. So certainly there is perhaps a bit of great interest in that, and people are now posting a lot more about what is happening in terms of the politics of the country, and trying to figure out where things are at in that regard. Of course, the issue of politics is something we have seen. It can have major implications in terms of policy direction and certainly the pace at which development occurs. And since 2006, since that general election where we saw a shift from the St. Lucia Labour Party, which was in at that point for 2 terms, to the United Workers' Party, that point being a return of the former Prime Minister, long-standing Prime Minister of St. Lucia, longest ever serving Prime Minister of St. Lucia, coming back in for a final term, that of Sir John Compton. Since then, of course, that administration only lasted up until September of 2007, just a little over a year, because he in fact passed, and then we saw it being taken over, Mr. Stevenson King coming in and heading that administration up until 2011. And then we saw a change again in 2011, back to the St. Lucia Labour Party. We've seen a change again in 2016, back to the United Workers' Party, this time under the leadership of Alan Chasney. And then we've seen another change with respect to that of the St. Lucia Labour Party coming back in again in July of 2021. So effectively, we've seen 4 passings from one party to the next, and we have no party since that period has been able to actually gain a second term. So you now have a situation, of course, where the current administration is looking to break that tide and to gain another term in office. And of course, the United Workers' Party, no doubt desirous of maintaining what has been the status quo for the past 4 electoral cycles, to try to see another swing of the pendulum back to them. Of course, in the last election, though, this was the first time that the margin was so significant. We've been seeing since 2006 an 11-6 spread between the parties, and that has been what has happened in the 2006 election, in the 2011 election, and in the 2016 election. And so that 11-6 spread was what was being obtained until last time here, where we saw one could say 15-2, or if you prefer 13-2-2, if you want to disaggregate the independent candidates who are in fact part of the cabinet. And so we are now in a situation where we are looking at a potential new election somewhere on the horizon. And of course, people are asking questions as to who they think will in fact be advantageous, or who be in fact be able to win in that upcoming general election for another 5-year term. That in fact was a question that was being posed to St. Lucians through a Vox Pop taken on by Choice TV. And I believe we have that clip available, which we can in fact share at this time to take a listen to some of the thoughts and expressions of the St. Lucian population.
Both major political parties are ramping up their activities, events, and rhetoric. The United Workers' Party continues to call for the government to step down, essentially urging an early election, while the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party remains focused on completing the long-delayed Central Hospital, a promise 3 previous administrations failed to fulfill. With political tensions rising and both sides preparing for an electoral showdown, the Choice News team took to the streets to ask the big question: who do you think has the advantage to win the next general election? Is what the people had to say. That's a good little gauge there. It gives them.
I would say Labour, because Chastain had a very bad 5 years. So Labour all the way. Actually, Red have the advantage, man. They Red. Why? Well, I mean, they consider the people more. That's just in my opinion, eh? Yeah, man. The yellow, maybe they have a little consideration, but they're too harsh about it. Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people will expect me to say UWP, of course, because I am on the side of the United Workers' Party. However, with how things go, we never really know. Honest question, we don't really know what is going to happen. We never know what's going to go on. We don't know what's going to triumph. I mean, we are St. Lucian saw the US election. Many of us was hoping it would be Kamala Harris, and we saw in favor of Donald Trump clean and sweeply, even more votes than he had before when he went against Hillary Clinton. So we truly never know what the outcome will be. We can only practice our democratic rights. We must vote. And of course, I am a supporter of the United Workers' Party. I want us to win, but anything is possible. The Labour Party definitely have the advantage because to come from 2 seats to get a majority is very hard. And therefore, they might get maybe 1 or 2 seats, but to get a majority, they will not get a majority. As I said before, to come from 2 seats and to get to win the election, I think the Labour Party will win the next election. Have an advantage, but Labour have a good chance still. If Labour pick the right candidates in different areas, they have a good chance of winning the next election. But if they do that, they have a chance against Labour. The SLP has the advantage. In spite of what people say, in spite of whether they St. Lucians, St. Lucians don't be stupid like about 10 or 15 years back. You're looking for the future, and it's the future. Because my reason for that, the party that was there before, they have done so many things, and the same thing they do, they come in and criticize what the government do, and they have records that are showing that way. The records are not, it can't even rest on a player, furtherless. So I believe that in spite of what happened, that is my take. The SLP have the advantage, and that is if they would have a leaking worse than the last one. I give SLP the edge, but I don't think they have had the minimum wage, the laptop business, they're trying to open center soon, give back people some time ago. A number of things they have done, a number of things. So SLP are the edge. Usually the government most times always has the advantage. Why? Because our constitution determines that the government is the one who calls elections. So you may find that the government may usually have its plan in place to determine, hey, when will we call elections? And because of that, generally government always has the advantage. It doesn't mean it will turn out in their favor, but they do have the advantage in terms of when election is called and the preparation for elections. I think that the government has been doing good work, and very, very good work. So I can very easily give them the edge. Parti qui est au pouvoir là, which is the Labour Party. La new party must have Tesla right now because of ça va faire by moun a pays que mané ka traiter moun a pays. Moi feel bien moun catch les pieds qui garder by pied. La pas ni mané flop pour ça passer. Because parti ça quand on dit tout le monde, moi quoi, jeune pas de jeune monde. C'est parti jeune. Si jeune monde bien catch les garder mané by garder. Prime Minister ni pour faire call it. And there's doubt about it. The news continues.
Right, and that piece coming from from Choice TV. Of course, we want to hear your views on some of what has been said there, and we will take in a few calls at this time as we head to the phone line. Of course, the number is 452-3046. Good afternoon, and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello? Hello, good afternoon. Okay, I'm not sure what occurred there. Did we lose that call? Yeah, we seem to have lost that call. Okay, of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And some thoughts coming out there. Some people looking at the, perhaps looking at the math, looking at the current seat count, and feeling that because of that margin, that it's kind of difficult for the the other side, the opposition party, to be able to swing that extent of votes. And of course, that may be one way of looking at it if we were purely looking at the maybe the total numbers across the country. That said, though, it's a little different because we are dealing with a situation where you have a first past the post system, and effectively all you need to do is to get, you know, well, whatever it is, plus one, the majority, simple majority plus one. So really and truly, if you look at it from that kind of logic, in the purest sense, in the first past the post system, like given the fact that you need nine seats to win an election, you could theoretically, or if you just got at one vote more in 9 seats, right, you would effectively win a general election with 9 votes. That's really in the simplest sense, you could probably say, or in that sense, maybe you could just say you just have to get one in that one particular seat to put over the edge. So basically, yeah, with 9 votes, you can get to where you are. And so if you do look at the margins in the respective seats, of course, in as much as you may say, well, the St. Lucia Labour Party won 50% of the votes compared to the United Workers' Party's 43% of the popular vote, and they won nearly if you take out the independents, you can say that they easily had like about 6,000 more votes than the United Workers' Party. But if you add the independent votes as well, you could argue that there's 12,000 vote spread in a 87,000 vote base, and so you could potentially say, yes, well, the Labour Party is in a very, very strong position. But then if you look at maybe the individual seats and you look at the margins in some of these seats, this is obviously where the United Workers' Party would be most interested in trying to overcome the St. Lucia Labour Party's current majority in Parliament. And so certainly seats where the margins were pretty close, that of Dennery South, for example, is always a seat one can say has of late been to some degree in play. It was held by Mr. Edmund Estefan of the United Workers' Party for a couple of terms. And in fact, in some instances, he gained it by the very same majority in each instance. But in the last general election, he wasn't able to hold on to that constituency. And in fact, he was defeated by a newcomer, former Chief Forestry Officer, Mr. Alfred Prosper, winning that seat by about 184 votes. And because it's such a small seat, one can somewhat argue that it's always a seat where, because the margins are small, there's always a bit of a toss-up. There hasn't been a runaway victory in that constituency for some time. And so really the margin, I think, about 184 votes difference between these two candidates in the last general election. Another relatively close seat, that of Ancillary Canneries. That seat was won by also a relatively small margin of 165 votes in the last general election. That in that instance, again, another newcomer, Mr. Wayne Girard, coming in and defeating Mr. Dominic Fede, or Senator Dominic Fede. He's in the Senate currently. And again, very interesting seat to watch. Has been traditionally had been a Labour Party seat, but that, of course, has changed over the past couple electoral cycles, and certainly one of those to look at as well. In the case of Babonneau, again, one of the smallest margins of all the seats. 110 votes was the margin there, with Virginia Albert Poyot defeating Ezekiel Joseph. And there too, traditionally, United Workers' Party strong seat under Mr. Alan Bousquet. But perhaps since the 1997 general election, it has been a seat that has kind of gone in both directions, being held by Labour Party candidates, more so, in fact, than the United Workers' Party over the past 30 years or so. And so, as to how that seat will, of course, also pan out, will be very, very interesting given the small margins that we are witnessing here. Of course, another one which is causing quite a lot of interest, partly because of the one of the individuals who has been associated with it for some time, is that of Castries Southeast. And in the last general election, it was perhaps certainly a major seat to watch because it had been held by the United Workers' Party's Guy Joseph for a number of terms. And he now was not able to hold on to that seat. In fact, being defeated relatively handsomely, one can say, by Mr. Joachim Henry, the current MP. And of course, Mr. Joseph is still active in the politics of St. Lucia. He is now the deputy leader of the United Workers' Party. And he lost that seat by 437 votes. It sounds like a pretty large number, but it is, in fact, one of the largest seats on island. It is, I believe, the second largest seat on island. And so, 15,000 electors in that constituency. So, although that number is relatively larger than some of the others which we were hearing, which were all under 200, those were generally smaller seats. And in this instance, although Babonneau pretty large too, pretty close margin, but in the case of Castries Southeast, a little bit more of a buffer, a margin for Mr. Henry, if in fact he's the one who's going to be going up again for the St. Lucia Labour Party. And but going in, looking at it again on the surface, it is certainly one of those seats of great interest, no doubt. Would be of interest to the United Workers' Party to try to see if they could get a flip there. And another one which created history in the last general election was the seat of Micoud South. And that seat, traditionally, of course, United Workers' Party through and through. And in fact, the youngest member in the House currently, Mr. Jeremiah Norbert, he was able to, in fact, bring that in for the St. Lucia Labour Party in the last general election. And he did so pretty handsomely, winning that seat by well over 500 votes. A significant shift, perhaps, in the politics of that constituency, because prior to that, that seat had, as far as I can recall, had never been won by a member of the St. Lucia Labour Party. It had been consistently yellow over the years. Even Micoud South had been won by the Labour Party in the past with Cassie Elias, but not Micoud North. And Mr. Norbert was in fact able to make a significant shift in the electoral map as a result of that victory, which he was able to gain. And perhaps the closest of them all in terms of margins to look at was that of Soufrière. And, well, one could say perhaps Honorable Emma Hippolyte is no stranger to very narrow margins. She, in fact, was able to win the Grosley seat back in 2011 by a majority of just 7. And in the last general election, this time running for Soufrière, she was in fact able to bring up a margin of about 65 votes over her competitor, Mr. Herod Stanislas. And that, I think, is the narrowest of margins that exist in that situation. So we looked at some seats that more than likely would be of interest to the United Workers' Party. And those would be the seats that they would certainly be looking to somehow cause for a swing, looking at the marginal seats and being able to see where, in fact, they could potentially result in some sort of a swing. And remember, we were saying that when you look at those numbers, albeit it might be in total the popular vote, they may be down by 12,000 votes, but in just those 5 seats, the margin is 521 votes. All right, if you add in perhaps another 2 and those 5 seats that I'm speaking of would be Ancillary, Babonneau, the seats of Soufrière as well, Dennery South, and we're missing just one more, which I'm gonna see if I can figure that one out. Did we leave? Is it Castries Southeast? No, not Castries Southeast. And Dennery, yes, Dennery South. Yeah, but those are the critical ones, I would say, perhaps, that they would certainly be looking at. And if you throw in a Castries Southeast into the mix alongside maybe a traditional Micoud North, that would require about 1,500 votes that you've got to shift to be able to actually gain those seven seats. And of course, remember, for a United Workers' Party position, they need to get to 9, right? They need to get to that majority. And so they would need to be looking to flip 7 seats. And so theoretically, by a shift of 1,500 votes, that is something that could potentially happen. So it is certainly very important to look at the data and to see precisely how things are, because at the end of the day, you could be doing pretty good at a national level and you can actually get national support. But the way our system is designed, you still have to ensure that you're holding on to seats in those various places. And of course, it is, at the end of the day, a seat-by-seat victory that has to be won by either party. That's our program for today. And we'll be back again tomorrow, Friday, for another one. Hope you can join us for that, God willing. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.